In this video, I'm taking a look at the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Hans Niemann from round 8, the penultimate round of the UzChess Cup. Well, these two have quite a testy relationship. Hans Niemann accused Nepo of damaging his career, organising some campaign to prevent him being invited to a tournament a couple of years ago. But recently, in spite of that, they actually played an 8-game sort of semi-fast classical match, which ended 4-4. However, it ended in acrimony because Nepo made some rather unpleasant remarks at the end of the match. Well, let me just show you a tweet that Hans Niemann wrote after the match, which cleared up a lot of the issues. But the one crucial thing here is let's read what Hans Niemann said. He said, "What I won't let pass is his line that I played the final game with no inaccuracies like my younger years. I'd ask Jan to say plainly what he means. Insinuations like that are serious and damaging, and we all remember what they cost me for years." So there we go. Nepo is basically insinuating that Niemann was cheating. And when they first met before the UzChess Cup at the players' technical meeting, Nepo refused to shake Niemann's hand. Whoa! So this game was always going to be absolutely fascinating, and they came out of their traps very fast indeed. Let's take a look and see what happened in this game. Nepo playing white, and it's a Spanish main line, and this has been played thousands of times, and the players rattle through these moves incredibly quickly. This is a classical game. It's 90 minutes plus 30 seconds to get to move 40, and then 30 minutes is added to the clock. But it was like these two were playing a blitz game because it all happened so quickly. D4, and Nepo just went straight for the endgame. I mean, still hundreds of games have been seen from this position. Knight D2. You could say that white has a very slight advantage here because this square is available for white's pieces, but it's very narrow, it's very slim. Knight G4, still in very well-known territory. Bishop E3, bishop takes, pawn takes. And at this point, Niemann had his first think. In fact, it was a big think. He thought for 26.5 minutes over this next move. Now, bishop E6 has been seen before, but he went for rook D6, which is let's say the standard move. Still a fair few games have been played in this position. In fact, Nepo has had this exact position in a blitz game on chess.com from 2019. And in that game, Nepo played rook d1 against Ding. And I think that one, finally ended in a draw. Most games end in a draw from this position. It's very tight indeed. I mean, rook d1 looks like a very natural move. So this is Nepo's previous game from 2019. And it went like this. But black always gets counterplay here. This is what happened. And this game was drawn in a few more moves. There's not enough going on in position. I mean, this king, if white wants to try to win, this king should be somewhere over on the queen side, but it's too far away. So what was Nepo doing going down this line? Well, here he produced a new move. After precisely 12 seconds, he played bishop d5, which looks a little bit odd because surely black is just going to play c6 which Niemann did after 3.5 minutes. And hasn't black somehow gained a little bit of time? Well, the difference is this, that when the rook comes to the d file, then black is not able to recapture the pawn. So Niemann keeps some control over the d file. Exchange of bishops. Niemann thought for 16 minutes here over whether he should recapture with the rook or the pawn. I mean, we would like to recapture with the rook. The problem is, then the rook reaches the d file. And that's not so clear. I mean, the computer thinks that most of these lines are still equal. But from a human point of view, this is quite tricky. And just going back to this new move, bishop d5, the computer doesn't believe this is anything special. You know, this is like the fourth best move according to Stockfish 18. So this is very clever preparation. Basically, Nepo has appreciated that black has some difficult decisions here to make. And although the computer says it's still equal, in fact, black is under a lot of pressure. And Nepo was still banging out his moves. We're on move 22. And Nepo was still playing these moves almost instantly. Whereas Niemann was having to think. The king reaches the center. Now that's incredibly important. So covering crucial squares here. And white is just faster to the center, faster than black's king. Now Niemann took the pawn. Now you don't want to take here and allow a rook check. But rook d1, I mean, it looks so simple the way that white is playing. You know, you're even giving your opponent a pawn. But because black's king is a couple of steps from the center, then this works. It's very clever. So basically, if the rooks are exchanged, then the knight is going to take here, and you can see that black's queenside pawns are vulnerable. This is the issue. And black can't avoid that exchange. And notice that white's king, you know, protects some crucial squares, protects pawns. So Niemann played rook d5 instead. Now, the rooks can still be forced off. And knight takes e5. The computer still says this position is equal. But if you looked at this from black's viewpoint, then I think you'd start to feel very uncomfortable. Because black has nothing to attack here. Notice how well placed white's king is, stopping that knight coming in. Pawns are now equal, material is level. But this knight is starting to look at those vulnerable pawns on the queen side. So this is basically a free roll for white. You know, it's very hard for white to lose this position. But black is on the edge the whole time. This is very clever preparation from Nepo. c5. Okay, saves that pawn. King f3. So that king might just step up. Knight c6. The king needs to come across because this knight, I mean, basically the knight is going to take a pawn, one of these pawns. If a5, then king f4. And the king is starting to step in. So king d8, knight takes a6. So now Nepo is a pawn up. Niemann played king c8 here. The computer and still thinks that king c8 might be okay. It's now really on the edge. Strangely, you know, having played king d8, the computer says that king d7 is more accurate. Now, this shows you just how difficult a position it is, because it's such a counterintuitive move just to basically wait in the middle. But king c8 played. King f4, so this is scary. So basically, Nepo has decided to ditch the knight, but now the king is coming in to take as many pawns as possible. King e5. The knight drops. King takes d5. This knight is attacked, has to move. King takes c5. Okay, so let's just take stock. Nepo has 3 pawns for the knight, and this king is incredibly active. And it's at this moment that the computer says that Niemann made the fatal mistake. But honestly, this is so hard to judge. Particularly, when you're under pressure on the clock, your opponent is playing incredibly quickly. Nepo was barely thinking about his moves, playing them in seconds. Very tough to face that kind of preparation. The computer believes that, and I believe the computer, that h5 is the best move here. That is very hard to determine. Niemann played knight g4, which looks kind of sensible. You need counterplay, you need to take a pawn. But this apparently is now losing. e4. Knight takes h2. And now Nepo had his biggest think of the game. I believe it's his biggest think of the game. He spent 8 minutes and 1 second over his next move. So this is sensible, because he knows that he's so close to winning, and it's very easy to mess up these kind of situations. So he invested some time and picked off the pawn. The knight came back. King c5, h5, king d4. So he's leaving those queenside pawns for the time being and is going to push this one. b3, everything's protected. And e5, e6. Bit of counterplay. Well, actually the king is just coming across to clean up one of the pawns. a6, so now that either the knight or the king has to stop the a pawn. King h4, king e6, king g5, king f7. So Niemann has prevented this pawn from being taken, but now Nepo switches back. g4, it's no particular rush. And king e4, and that was the final move for the game. Okay, we may as well take it to the end. Niemann resigned here. We're on move 51, by the way. Okay, so why did he resign? Well, let's, for example, play king e6. There's no point in moving the knight. c4. Basically, white can just nudge these pawns up the board without any difficulty at all. For example. And they're going to go through. If the king had come across earlier, or black had waited with a move like g5, then of course the king could turn back and take a g pawn. That's something that black has to be careful of as well. So basically it is completely lost. But really a very, very impressive game by Nepo. That's modern day preparation. Basically, in a position that the computer says is level, you have to look from a human point of view and think, what's going to be very uncomfortable for my opponent? And Nepo realised this is actually a really difficult position. There was a handshake at the end of the game, as at the start. So that's good to see. At the end, Nepo still had 1 hour and 23 minutes remaining on the clock. Incredible. He said afterwards, "I was just happy to use my 2021 preparation finally. It was for Magnus." There you go. So Magnus Carlsen dodged the bullet. Yeah, fantastic prep. And disappointment for Hans Niemann, who's, I mean, generally his opening preparation is very strong, very good. But this is really deep. You know, just coming back to this position. I mean, bishop d5 is certainly quite a counterintuitive move, giving your opponent a tempo, but Nepo had appreciated that the resulting position was actually quite difficult for black. That's an understatement. Right, let's have a look at the standings. Going into the final round, let's have a look. If I can find them. Here we go. So in the lead, Vokhidov and Maraminov, two young Uzbek players, both on 5 points out of 8. We have Mamedyarov and Nepomniachtchi on 4.5. Now, realistically, it's really only those four players can win the tournament. Let's just look at the final round pairings. Mamedyarov plays Nepo. Okay, massive game there. Vidit plays Yakubayev. Abdusatorov plays Vokhidov. Erigaisi plays Theodoru. And Niemann plays Maraminov. I will report back on what will happen in that crucial final round. But fascinating tournament. There was a very bizarre episode today where Abdusatorov blundered a rook. Just left it on prise. Quite extraordinary, actually. So I don't know what happened there. Anyway, it's really been a fantastic tournament with sort of ones and zeros all over the tournament table. And I'll report back. Don't forget, next live broadcast on the channel will be this coming Wednesday, where I'll be interviewing Paul van der Sterren and Erwin Lamy on their new book about Max Over. It's a really excellent book, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion. See you soon.